All right, let's start with some news that's coming in where reports state that China has rejected Hong Kong government's proposal to withdraw the extradition bill. Now, Hong Kong had submitted a report to Beijing evaluating the feasibility of the protesters' demand. The chief executive, Carrie Lam, had submitted the report before a 7th of August meeting with the Chinese officials. But Beijing reportedly rejected the 5 demands of the protesters. It has directed Carrie Lam not to withdraw the controversial extradition bill that for the time being has been suspended. Now, Carrie Lam's office has said that her government had made efforts to address the protesters' concerns but did not comment directly on whether it had made such a proposal to Beijing. The last month, Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam had said that the bill had been suspended, but the protesters have been continuing with their demonstrations and they've sought a complete withdrawal, that is the scrapping of the bill from the legislative process. And our correspondent Bruce Harrison is of course tracking the developments very closely for us, and he joins us live from Hong Kong. Thank you very much indeed, Bruce, for joining us on this broadcast. And let me begin by asking you this: what's exactly happening in terms of this offer that was reportedly made by Carrie Lam to see if that very controversial extradition bill could be withdrawn altogether, and it has now been rejected by Beijing?
Well, those are reports, Mohammed, and we don't know too many more details. This would not be the first time this summer we've heard different varying reports about either Beijing or the Hong Kong government encouraging the other to withdraw this bill. And once again, we're in a situation where it's quite unclear what went on behind closed doors. This, like I said, wouldn't be the first time rumors that the Hong Kong government has wanted this action to take place, but Beijing has put its foot down and said, no, stand firm. We're telling you how to operate. But we don't really have official confirmation that that's the case. And if that is the case, it's only going to see the demonstrations prolonged, because one of the key demands by the demonstrators has been the full withdrawal of this extradition bill. They're concerned about because they believe Hong Kongers can be plucked from this city and taken to the mainland and tried in what they believe is an unjust judicial system.
Absolutely indeed. And the other issue that I want to talk to you about is the arrest of Joshua Wong and 2 other activists in Hong Kong. Give us a sense of what's playing out, because the manner in which Joshua Wong reportedly was arrested is pretty dramatic, where it was said that he was walking in a street and then he was bundled into a car and told that he was arrested.
Yeah, extremely dramatic. And he was apparently on his way to the subway station when he was picked up, and one of his co-founders of the pro-democracy group, Demo Sisto, Agnes Chow, was also arrested this morning. The day before, Andy Chan, a pro-independence activist, a very prominent pro-independence activist, also arrested yesterday at the airport. So the police are making a roundup of these pro-democracy figures ahead of another planned weekend of rallies. But what I'm hearing on the ground and what I'm hearing on social media is this is a terrible move by the government. It will only incense the demonstrators to continue demonstrating. And what's interesting is that they're choosing to arrest these people now. They say that Wong and Chow have been picked up on charges of inciting unauthorized demonstrations and participating in unauthorized demonstrations. And while they may have appeared early in the movement, they've largely stayed behind the scenes compared to their activism in 2014, because this summer's demonstrations have been leaderless, and that's been part of the reason they've been able to continue for so long. The police haven't had a single individual or multiple individuals to prosecute, I should say. So they're arresting people now that certainly haven't been at the forefront of this summer's demonstrations, but these arrests will, like I said, anger the demonstrators and potentially prolong these events or lead to even more violence between the police and the demonstrators.
Absolutely indeed, Bruce. And just before I let you go, this will be the 13th straight weekend of protests in Hong Kong. Give us a sense as to how these protests have had an impact on the regular day-to-day life for a common resident of Hong Kong.
Yes, the 13th weekend. There was a big mass march planned for tomorrow. It has been banned by the police, and the organizers have actually canceled it. But I believe that the demonstrators will still come out in some way to protest against the Hong Kong government. And how will that continue to impact local citizens' lives? Well, it depends what side you stand on. I've covered these demonstrations for weeks now, and you will often find sympathetic members of residential neighborhoods who support the pro-democracy movement and even come out and join these people when the rallies are taking place in the streets, including the clashes between the police and demonstrators. There are others who have concerns about their day-to-day lives, the dangers that the clashes pose to them, as well as even their pets because of the tear gas the police had been using. But beyond the residential life, I think the economy has come into focus more and more. Tourism has definitely taken a blow here. And even in some of the places I've been staying, I've talked to some of the staff and they say, we're hurting. We've actually had to lay off hotel workers, different cleaning staff, just because the traffic here has diminished because of the concerns over the clashes. There's certainly fewer people coming from the Chinese mainland to Hong Kong right now.
Absolutely, indeed. And we're also looking at the place that you are standing, Bruce, and I see that there are many shops that have downed the shutters. It's Friday afternoon, roughly about 2:40 p.m. in Hong Kong, local time there. Is this one of the direct results of the protests that are presently ongoing?
Well, not in this particular neighborhood. Other shops are adjusting their hours because of a fall in demand for certain products, namely in relation to the tourism industry. But some of the shutters you're seeing behind me, including this colorful one right here, just happens to be a bar, and I don't believe they've opened for the day yet, even though it is Friday. I'm sure they'll pick up at some point later in this evening. But to reinforce, yes, the demonstrations have hit tourism. They've also hit the stock market. We've seen just one IPO, I believe, this month. So a lot of areas impacted.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Bruce Harrison, for joining us and getting us the latest in terms of the situation that is unfolding in Hong Kong. We'll, of course, come back to you as more details emerge. For the time being, let's shift our attention to the other big story that, of course, is playing out in Hong Kong, where prominent pro-democracy activist Joshua Wong, let's reiterate, has been arrested in Hong Kong. His arrest comes a day ahead of the planned mass protest. The political party that Wong co-founded has said that he was forcefully pushed into a private car while he was walking on the street and then was told that he was under arrest. Joshua Wong was later taken to a police headquarters in Wan Chai. His party has said that he faces 3 charges but did not reveal as to what exactly the charges are. In 2014, Wong had led the umbrella protest that paralyzed the city for nearly about 80 days. He became a prominent face for the movement ever since, and he also served a 2-month sentence in prison this year for the 2014 protest and was later released from prison in the month of June. Last month, Joshua Wong spoke to WION World is One. He said that the Hong Kongers were only asking for their fundamental rights. Listen in.
One country, two system have been eroded to be one country, one and a half system. In the worst scenario, might result in one country, one system after 2047. That's why political and economic status of Hong Kong should be determined by Hong Kong people instead of Beijing, and we hope to be the master of our own house. Hong Kong people have our determination and spirit, continue the strike. It's a must for Beijing stop its hardline policy to Hong Kong. Even PLA exists in Hong Kong. People are not afraid. And we continue just asking for our fundamental right. We hope to vote in the election.